Hello traders, Rich here, and today we are going to learn a price action strategy for crypto. It's very simple and straightforward that you can start applying today on any crypto instrument. So let's get started, and as usual, cheers. As I always say, before you risk your own money, it's very important to backtest your strategy first and try it out on a demo account. For example, BitYard is one of the few exchanges that provides you with a demo account. Simply sign up for free and then go to Futures, pick an instrument or click on Live Futures and you can choose your instruments here. Now, if you scroll down, next to Assets, you have this button where you can shift from your live to your demo account and you will get 100K virtual money so that you can try your strategy, gain confidence in it before shifting to your live account with just one click. If you don't have an account yet, I'll make sure to include the links in the description below. And I also include my Telegram channel where I forward the videos from YouTube and analysis from TradingView in case you want to get notified when I post new content. Now, regarding the strategy, right? So we start from weekly time frame, as you can see here on BNB, on Binance Coin for overall direction. Then we zoom into daily and H4 for entry. For those who'd like to day trade, especially for futures traders, anyway, we'll cover everything from spot to futures, from when to close if you are, when to buy and close if you are trading a spot, and regarding futures, where to place your stop loss and take profit. And we'll go over many live examples, not only on BNB, we'll cover 5 different cases, okay? As usual, as practical as possible. So for those who would like to day trade, then you start from H4 instead of weekly for overall direction, and then you zoom into M30 and even on M15. Okay, so weekly, daily H4, H4, H1, and M30 and even lower. So the same logic, but we'll stick to these time frames for spot and for futures. And for futures, you can go for these ones also for shorter term trades. Now, from weekly time frame, this is for overall direction. We want to know where we stand in the market, and we want to look for areas where we have an edge. For example, on BNB, we want to draw a channel or a support and resistance to engulf the overall movement. In this particular case, we can see that we are overall bullish, of course, looking for buy setups on every correction, and we can draw this trend line, which is engulfing the overall movement upward. We can see many rejections from it. So what you do is from weekly, from a zoomed out picture, you can identify the long-term movement, and then every time we have a correction, now we zoom into lower time frames and wait for the buyers to take over again to catch the next impulse movement, which we are going to do in a bit. So for now, this is the overall movement, and regarding the upper bound or the highs, we can draw this trend line, or we can simply stick and draw it as a horizontal level, right? Because these are the highs are equal. But if you want to keep it as clean as possible, we can go for a trend line. So now BNB is trading inside this giant symmetric triangle. So to have an edge over the market, if you want to look for a buy setup, right, for spot trading, this is a very good area to look for buy setups, because now price is around the lower band. So lower bound, upper band, lower, upper, and so on, right? So if you look for buy setups around here, don't try just to catch the movement as it goes, right? Always wait for a correction. And if you don't catch this particular one, you've got a lot of instruments that you can wait for. Okay, so don't just try to buy with a fear of missing out. For example, if you bought BNB here or even here, right? So if price is in the middle or around the upper bound, we don't look for buy setups. We wait for the correction, and then we enter at an attractive and good rate. Okay, so now let's go for another example, because every example is different. For XTZ, right, we can see that we can also draw a trend line like this, and we can also go for the upper bound like this. Okay, and in this case, it's trading inside this rising broadening wedge. Anyway, don't worry about the names of the patterns, right? Just draw your trend lines, identify the upper bound and lower bound, right? So now XTZ is around the lower bound, so that's why we are looking for buy setups. Next, we have rows. This one is a little bit different. So we've got first our symmetric triangle. Next, we've got rising broadening wedge. Now we have a rising channel, right? And we can see it better from daily time frame. Okay, so that's it. Here we go, which is here. Yes, let me make it appear on weekly and H4 as well. that's it. So weekly time frame, that's it, right? So and anyway, we can start even from here. So this trend line is engulfing the overall movement. You can make an offset for it to identify the upper bound. So I don't want to buy rows around the upper band, right? So my risk to reward is very bad, and I don't want to buy around a resistance, even if it is a horizontal or non-horizontal resistance. Instead, always wait for correction. As you can see, the price always corrects, right? So impulse correction, impulse correction. So don't buy at the end or at the middle of the impulse movement. Always wait for the correction, and you will always get one. Okay, so that's from daily time frame. And next, let's cover one more case, one or two cases. So in this particular case, we can't really draw a trend line. We could draw a trend line previously here, but now it's broken downward. So it's no longer acting as a non-horizontal support. In this particular case, we can draw this one, which is covering the lower band. And to make it even cleaner, in this case, let's draw as a horizontal level. And as you can see, it's also a very strong number, round number 1. Okay, so this is our lower bound on ADA. And regarding the upper bound, we've got rejections here around 1.5, 1.6, right? So this entire area, we can see price rejecting it multiple times. And of course, from a long-term perspective, the upper bound, anyway, let me stick to weekly first. Okay, so this is our upper bound on ADA. And now sitting around the lower bound, we also have a rejection area here, which is a demand area. If you don't know what a demand and a supply area is, you simply search on my YouTube channel, you can find a supply and demand area strategy. But for now, let's focus on the price action and market structure and keep it as clean as possible. So we've got many rejections from this one. So we identified our lower band. I guess we do have, yes, one more example, which is H bar. We also have a rejection from here. So this is our lower bound. So we've got our impulse correction, impulse, and we are currently in this correction phase. And this is around the lower bound. So we have an edge over the market. So once you identify your upper bound and lower bound, so this is our upper bound around 0.45 till 0.5, right? So that's it. And let me draw the 0.5. So I don't want to buy H bar as it approaches this area, or if it's sitting in the middle. I don't want to buy here. I don't want to buy here. I'm waiting for the lower band. Of course, unless we now price rejects this one upward. In this case, I can draw a trend line. So now this one also becomes a possible rejection. So as price approaches it, I don't need to wait for this one. Instead, I can start to look for buy stops at the lower band, because now this is my new lower band, and here's the offset for it, right? But I won't draw it now because it's only connecting one full swing. The swing is still forming. Okay, and I insist on the word, as you noticed, looking. I don't buy blindly, even though I'm overall bullish and the correction is about to end, or like it's already oversold or overextended. I don't just buy blindly. I always wait for extra confirmation, which we are going to learn now. So now we identified symmetric triangle, rising broadening wedge, channel, whatever you want to call it, right? So now, weekly time frame is done. Now we zoom into daily time frame. Let me see if it appears. It doesn't. Let me make it appear on daily really quick. I'm trying to keep it as simple and fast as possible. So hope I'm not talking fast, because my English isn't my first language. So hope it's clear. So on daily time frame, now if you zoom in, you can identify, or you can feel the market and how clean the movements are, especially on daily time frame, daily and weekly, of course. So now we were overall bearish. The price is making lower highs and lower lows. Then price broke above the previous high. So now we are overall bullish. Price started to make higher lows and higher highs. And as you noticed, the previous highs, right, which is formed as a big swing like this and like this, these highs aren't broken downward for a long period of time. And then when they are broken, when the last low in this case is broken downward, then the bears the bears took over and the bearish trend started. It can be a small correction or it can be a whole trend just like this one. We can't really know. We just know that the bears took over and price started to make lower lows and lower highs until eventually the buyers took over by breaking above the high. So now the buyers took over after this impulse. Now we are in a bullish trend, correction, impulse, right? So higher lows. So just compare the highs and lows. That's simple. And then when the previous low is broken down, now we have this impulse, and now price starts to make impulse and correction, pushing price lower. Okay, so now we've got, here we go, lower highs and low low. And as you noticed, the previous highs aren't broken upward. That's how you know that you are still in a bearish trend. And if you were to compare this price action to the previous one, here we go, right? So we've got our bearish movement, and that's it now. Okay, where the buyers took over by breaking above the last high, by breaking above, let me draw again, last high. So the same logic here, we are looking for the buyers to take over by breaking above the last high, and the sellers took over here, and took over here, and even here for extra confirmation, and here as well, right? So the exact same logic you can apply here. The sellers didn't take over. Instead, the buyers clicked in again for another impulse movement upward. Let's take it step by step anyway, and let's keep it as simple as possible. So for now, this is our last swing high. So for the bulls to take over, we need to see a break above it. I'll go over two more examples, and then we'll introduce also how we can draw trend lines. I'll draw one just, here we go, just to prepare you for what's coming next, right? So that's it. Next, let's go for XTZ. Let's go to daily time frame again, and we can see the same exact logic. We were overall bearish, then price broke above the previous high. Now the bulls took over and price started to make higher lows and higher highs, right? Until eventually the sellers or the bears took over by breaking above the previous low, and then price started to make lower highs and lower lows. So we are now overall bearish. And just like previously what I did on BNB, we can also draw like a trend line which engulfs the overall movement. I want to make these ones appear on daily as well at H4. Anyway, we might not zoom into H4 because like everything is clear for now from daily time frame. That's it, right? So now we are overall bearish, and this trend line, and here we go, we've got a channel also is engulfing the overall movement downward. Let's take one more example on Rose, and that would be it. Right, so now we are overall bullish. We are looking for buy setups. If we go to ADA, the same exact logic. We were bearish, the buyers took over, then the sellers took over, and now the sellers are still in control, couldn't break above the previous high. Okay, so now let's move forward to BNB. We are overall bullish, right? That's it. Overall bullish, making this big impulse correction. Now we are looking for the next big impulse movement upward. We identified our lower bound, and we want to enter the buy. Okay, where's our extra confirmation? In this particular case, if we zoom in, if price breaks above the previous high, which would be like this and like this, we also check if there is anything holding the price back, right? For example, here, if you draw this trend line, we can see that the bulls took over by breaking above the trend line and the last swing at the same time. And the same thing for this particular case. We don't really have any trend lines above it holding the price back. Okay, so let me delete these ones, and here we go. However, in this particular case, if the bulls take over here, they might, or the bears might still kick in and reject the upper bound and the upper red trend line. That's why in this particular case, because every case is different, that's why I'm covering five charts, 5 instruments, and here we go. So in this case, I don't want to only see a break above the last high, but also a break above the red trend line. Or it might happen like this case, where price would form a new swing high and then break the last high and the trend line at the same time. If not, if like let's say price don't go like this and instead break this one, I wouldn't be buying. I want price to break above the trend line before like I enter a buy, because as mentioned previously, if the buyers take over here, they might still reject the upper red trend line. I'll be waiting for it to be broken upward. Let's go for XTZ. So for now, on daily, that's our last high, right? If price trades higher and break, here we go, and break both the last high and trend line, then I can enter a buy, right? Or price can still form like this and then break both the last high, which is here in this case, and the upper red trend line. And the reason why I'm looking for buy stops, because even though I'm around like the lower bound, I don't buy blindly, because price can trade lower and lower to test, for example, this support and resistance around 2, 1.5 before going higher. So the logic is identify the big picture, wait for price to approach the lower bound. It can be horizontal or non-horizontal, or it can be both, right? In this case, for example, I have two. I have a horizontal and non-horizontal. So price can reject this one or can still dive till this one before going higher. That's why I want to buy at the best rate possible. I want to buy when the buyers prove to me that they are strong enough to push higher and start the next impulse movement upward. And of course, like for spot traders, a good opportunity to look for to sell like your BNB is around the upper bounds. For example, if you go to daily time frame again, when the sellers took over here, it's a good indication that you should sell, right? So like be open-minded. Don't just like keep holding because you want to keep, unless of course like you hold long term and you don't want to trade it, you just buy and hold, right? And like for some traders would like to close half and then re-add the second half, and so on. That all depends on you. And maybe I'll make another video about risk management. Let me know in the comments if you would like what is the best, like what content you would like me to cover next. Okay, so the upper band is a good area to close your position. And for example, for futures traders who trades on margin, for example, if price do like this, and then because I want the price to invalidate the upper one before I entered the buy, let's say I entered the buy here, right? The stop loss should be just below the previous swing low. In this case, for example, price forms a low here. And we always target double your stop loss size. For example, I'm risking, let's say this much. I want to target at least double, which you see here, two risk to reward. Or if you would like, you can even target the upper band, which would be around the 4R. Okay, that's for futures. And as mentioned before, you can apply the same logic on lower time frames. In this case, instead of starting from H4, you start from weekly, you start from H4. Okay, so that's it for BNB. We've covered XYZ. Let's go for rows, right? So around the lower bound, we don't have any trend lines here, right? I can't really find, no matter if I zoom into H4 or not, I can't really find any trend lines, right? And even if I find some, for example, I found this one, right? It's already broken, and this is my last high. I can see it from daily, but that's why I told you we can zoom into H4, but I can even zoom into H4 to see it even better, and that's it. So for now, this is my last high. Price invalidated or broke above the trend line. Now I'm waiting for the last high to be broken upward to confirm that the buyers are finally taking over. Then and only then I can enter the buy. I would be entering around the lower bound and waiting or like expecting to catch the next impulse movement upward, and I'll be looking to close rows around the upper bound. How? Very simple, just like previously when the last low is broken downward, or you can immediately close it around the upper bound. It depends on your risk management, risk appetite, and so on. Okay, but we've got the idea. Next, let's go for two more examples, and that would be it. Okay, weekly time frame here. In this case, we don't have a non-horizontal support. We have a horizontal support, lower bounds around 1. So I'm not interested in looking for buy stops here because I don't have a non-horizontal or horizontal support. I'm waiting for the one, which is, if we checked previously, we've got many rejections from it. If we go to daily time frame, just like we did on BNB and XTZ, we can draw this channel. Let me make an offset for it. That's it, right? So now for me to buy, I don't want anything holding it back. So if I bought, for example, here, I know that the price might reject this trend line before going up. I want to price to invalidate or to break it before I enter the buy, okay? Or I can look for buy stops here and then look like monitor price action around the upper trend line to decide if I close it here and then re-enter on the break, or if price kept moving higher in an aggressive manner, then I can keep my buy. Okay, so always look if there is anything holding the price back. In this case, if you also zoom into H4, because we are around a support area and lower bound, we can also find a range just like we found on rows, and this is the range. Okay, so for buyers to take over, they need to break above this range. Very simple, lower highs, lower lows, broke above the previous high, traded higher, then broke above the previous low, traded lower, and starting from here, the bulls didn't manage to close above the previous high, right? So now this is our last major high that we are waiting for the break to enter the buy. Next, we've got H bar, which is our last example, I guess. Yes, BNB H bar. So on H bar, if you go to weekly time frame, approaching a support area, right? It's an entire area like this, and price is now approaching it. It can still dive lower before going higher. That's why it's always good, or like better, to wait for extra confirmation. If you were to apply the same logic, here we go. We've got our trend line here. We try to make an offset for it. That's it. Here we go, right? Like this, or we can even make it like to follow the price action more. It would be like a wedge pattern like this. Here we go. So now H bar is saying inside this wedge pattern, making this impulse correction, and that's it, right? And if you zoom in, we see that if we buy here, price might reject the upper trend line before going higher. It's very, very important. As mentioned before, that's why I'll be waiting for a new swing high to form around upper trend line before I enter the buy. Or because this trend line can hold the price down, just like here previously, here and here as well. Okay, so that's how you feel the market. That's how you enter with an edge in a way that makes sense, in a way that, okay, I'm going for a buy, but I don't want to anything holding it back. Or if price trades higher immediately and break this trend line, in this case, I'll be looking for buy setups on the retest. But I'm looking for buy stops in the first place because I am around the lower bound. Okay, so that's it. That's how simple it is. Identify the lower bound, wait for the buyers to take over after the correction. Don't buy at the impulse. Always wait for the correction. Close your trade or look for close your trade around the upper bound. And you can apply the same logic on our time frames. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments about any content that you would like me to cover next. Or if you have any questions, feel free to post it. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one.